Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Sean Callanan. He is the founder of Sports Geek and is an expert on sports digital landscape. He's on a mission to connect sports, fans, and sponsors using marketing technology and hosts a podcast which is in its 6th year and includes over 190 episodes and downloads in excess of 250,000. Podcast features interviews with sports executives from around the world on best practice in marketing, technology, and fan engagement. Through his career, Sean has worked with clients in the NBA, AFL, NRL, and cricket. He's been a keynote speaker at conferences across the world and has even performed as stand-up comedian. But today he will share some of his expertise in data performance and fan engagement, so please welcome to the stage, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, Brendan. I think the irony is here we are, what's your next move? And everyone has to sit down for the next 2 hours. So just to make sure that you're awake, I like to think of myself as a bit of a super networker, and I love connecting with people, and I hope that I get to connect with you. I connect with a lot of people on different platforms. So just for the next 2 minutes or so, just to wake everybody up and to start networking, because at these kind of events, what you want to do is meet new people and connect with new people. I want everyone to stand up, and I want you to go and meet someone, shake hands with someone that you have not met today, and tell them what's the best platform that you could connect on. For me, it's LinkedIn. Let's just get the blood flowing, and then we'll get started. I love the fact that everyone's up and about, meeting. Hopefully, now this is the problem that I have to get everyone back, right? I have to get everyone back, but it's good that you've all stood up. So if I can have you seated, if we can put the lights down. To me, it's really important to connect at events like this, but then also, because I do a lot of connecting online, so I connect on a lot of different platforms, which I'm going to talk about today, and how sports has leveraged digital and has leveraged these platforms. But we really can't go past the in real life connection that sport offers, and grassroots in particular. So today I'm going to look at some of the marketing side that professional sports looks at, and what you can leverage, but then also what data is currently on offer for you to better understand your participants and your wider community that are involved in your sport, whether it's an elite level, AFL, NRL, cricket, or, as we were just listening then, a local four-wheel drive club or a local judo class or whatever it is, because it can apply and it does scale. So a bit of a story about Sports Geek and how it started. Before I was Sports Geek, I was just a regular geek. I was a coder developer for 15 years, but a massive sports fan. And I looked at the world of sports and saw an opportunity to better leverage digital and what it was offering. Better websites, better email, and better use of these new platforms called social media. So in 2009, I founded Sports Geek, and I probably spent about 9 months both researching the industry and also telling a lot of organisations, hey, there's a lot of fans over here, we need to connect with them. And so one of the ways that I did find out what was happening and looking for best practice initially was in the US and in the UK and in Europe, because they were sort of the first movers on social and digital. So I was doing a lot of investigating online, and you can do a lot of research, on the internet. But what I also want to do is what you're doing today, which is in real life. So I set up a Sports Geek trip where I went to Los Angeles, Dallas, and New York, and the goal was to see what these teams and clubs were doing in the stadium. How were they connecting what they were doing in digital and content? How were they connecting it to what they were doing in the stadium? And so it was part secret shopper, it was part networking, so I just wanted to meet and talk to people about what they were doing. And so this story shows how I have connected with different sports and sports executives using all of these platforms. So I was at Dodger Stadium, and I was tweeting away, at Sean Callanan. If you're a tweeter, if you tweet, send me a tweet now. I'll answer the questions at the end. And I simply tweeted that I was really enjoying the tour of Dodger Stadium. It was out of season. The baseball wasn't on at that time. And Jill, she replied back on my hashtag #SportsGeekTrip, saying, hey, you should come to a game sometime. So I'd never met Jill before. She was just a new friend that I met on the internet. So we were bouncing backwards and forwards, and we figured out that we're both going to be in Dallas at the same time. So we said, cool, well, we're both going to be at the Mavericks game on, I think it was Wednesday. I said, we'll meet at halftime. And that was the whole idea of the trip, to meet new interesting people. So I went to the Dallas Mavericks game, and the reason I went via Dallas is my goal was to meet Mark Cuban. Do people know who Mark Cuban is? Just by a quick show of hands, maybe. Yeah, there's a couple. So Mark Cuban is the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He's also on the American version of Shark Tank. He's worth, I think the latest number is about $3 or $4 billion. And where he made that money was he founded broadcast.com by taking a microphone, putting it up to a radio, and streaming it on the internet. So radio on the internet was broadcast.com. He sold that to Yahoo at the very top of the .com boom and took that cash and went and bought the Dallas Mavericks for I think about $285 million. Now the Mavericks are probably worth $1 billion right now, so he's done okay. So I've always joked that Mark Cuban's a sports geek just like me. He's just got a little bit more money. So I tweeted Mark Cuban. I emailed him. I found 6 different emails. I emailed him. I also tweeted and connected with Brad Main at the American Airlines Center where the Mavericks play. Brad Main was the CEO of the American Airlines Center. So I tweeted him and I linked in him, said, hey, I'm going on this trip. I'm trying to meet people. And we had this LinkedIn backwards and forwards. I hadn't quite set up a time. So I've gone to the Mavericks game, and cheekily, I've tweeted both Brad Main and Mark Cuban, because I was just sitting about from where I am to Brendan is behind Mark Cuban. I'd strategically picked seats where I could just go up and say hello. And I'm sitting there, and I met a new friend, chatting with him, watching the Mavs play the Lakers, and then I hear this voice, Sean. I look over, there's Brad Main, and he's got 2 tickets. He goes, come up to the suite. Now, I was in a dilemma. Remember my friend Jill? Right, we were going to meet at halftime. But Brad's given me tickets to the suite. My friend Joe, who was sitting next to me, goes, they're going to have food in there. You've got to go to the suite. So, what would you do? You go to the suite. So I go up to the suite, and Brad, he's very kind. He goes, Sean, we've got some Fosters on ice for you. And that's my terrible American accent. I pretty much said, thanks, Brad. I'll do the Australian thing. I'll drink them all. But Australians don't drink Fosters. And then he introduces me to the people in the suite. He goes, this is Jill. Jill was in the suite telling Brad, hey, get this sports geek up here. He's doing this tour. And I met Jill online 3 days earlier, just by making these connections with people. So I was lucky enough to see Dirk Nowitzki score his 20,000th NBA point. And then the following day, I came back to watch the Dallas Stars, which is NHL. And Brad gave me a full tour of the stadium. I pressed the buzzer when the Dallas Stars hit a goal to make the scoreboard go off. And then I got a tour of the Mavericks locker room. So that's me holding Dirk Nowitzki's pants. Now, the reason I tell that story is because it took multiple platforms, multiple points of conversation on all of these platforms to make those connections. And 9 years later, I've now got this network of people that I can talk to via all of these platforms. And that's what's available to all sports, right? Because now, via all these platforms, everyone is connected, right? We're all connected via these networks, and data is more available than ever. And there's a real advantage from a sports point of view to use that data to have a better understanding of your customer and your participants. So in the pro scene, we all, and in club land, they always talk about the escalator and how can you deepen ties with the fan, keep increasing their engagement, keep increasing their financial commitment. I'm from Melbourne. Melbourne has a really strong sports membership culture, right? So the idea is you become a member and then you just don't stop becoming a member. I'm a Collingwood member, right? This is where I normally lose half the audience in Melbourne. But I'm a Collingwood member because my great-grandfather played for Collingwood. My son does not have a choice, right? And the thing is, I'm quite happy to give Collingwood my credit card and say, that's okay, you can have it until I die, right? That's the goal. That's the pinnacle for all the AFL, NRL membership, Big Bash membership. That's the goal you want to get to. So how do you start at the other end? Someone doesn't know your sport, doesn't follow your club. How do you get them to the point where they say, yep, cool, I'm in, here's my credit card, I'm good. And what we've found is digital helps accelerate that fan journey. If I use the AFL or the NRL example, and if you look at, say, 10 years ago, before I started Sports Geek, before this whole sports digital industry existed, in the off-season, your footy team would have contacted you maybe 4 or 5 times. They would have sent you maybe 1, maybe 2 emails to say, don't forget, become a member. They might have sent you a piece of hard mail, like the latest membership pack to say sign up. And that's about it. Whereas now, they're putting posts out on Facebook daily, could be multiple. They're tweeting a couple of times a day. They're putting out an Instagram post daily. They're also doing Instagram stories. They might be doing special content on Snapchat. They might even be talking to their corporates on LinkedIn. They might be doing Facebook Lives and telecasts of training or pre-season games or club shows with Facebook Live or YouTube. They might even have a chatbot that enables you to talk to the club in an automated fashion. They might even be looking at, what they can do in WhatsApp. So we've gone from 5 pieces of communications to literally thousands. And so all of those pieces give you an opportunity to tell the story of what your club, venue, group, association, what it does, what you want to achieve, why people should be part of your group. And so it's terrific storytelling opportunities in these platforms. And so we've definitely seen it, and I've definitely seen it working in both the AFL and the NRL. The AFL are much further along the membership journey. They started much earlier, but the NRL has caught up really quickly in helping them understand why you should be a member, and digital's been a part of that. We worked with Manly Seagulls way back in 2010, and they had, I think it was 3,000 members. And we spent the whole off-season sending out content talking about why membership's better than just turning up to Brookie and buying a ticket. And then went from 3,000 members to 12,000 members. And so that's the opportunity. And so you've got to figure out where are your fans and what platforms you can and should engage with. And so what I'm going to go through now is a little bit of stats around, a few stats around what platforms people are using, and then so therefore you can start deciding what platforms are best worthwhile putting your resources, your limited resources in. So this is the worldwide picture of social media from a monthly user point of view. So Facebook has 2 billion users. To give that context, there are 3 billion internet users. YouTube is up there with 1.5. And I was talking to some people before. YouTube is still the primary place that kids are watching content. Okay, kids can't, or they're not meant to be getting on Instagram and Facebook before 13, but they're definitely watching YouTube at a very young age. They're watching unboxing of toys, they're watching streaming, they're watching people play games. It's a media, that's how they consume video. Instagram is the big grower, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that because I think it is the platform of choice for grassroots. It's now at 700 million. For those of you who don't know, Facebook owns Instagram. Okay, it bought Instagram for $1 billion about 3 years ago, and so that's why that number is getting bigger and bigger. Twitter, I'll talk about later. It's definitely a platform that has worked really well with live sport. It is something that works very well with live events. So whether it's a grand final, Friday night footy, the Commonwealth Games, the Olympics, when you're watching TV, when you're watching an event, people are engaging on that second screen with Twitter and having that secondary commentary. Snapchat, so WhatsApp, Snapchat, Messenger, and WeChat are in the messenger space, in the how people are communicating. And again, to give context, Facebook owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger. So it just shows you the scale that Facebook has from what it knows about what we do. So here's some of this. Here's a bit of a snapshot of digital in Australia. To give you some context, so we're nearly at 25 million people, nearly at 22 million internet users. Now we are waiting for stuff to download because our speed is terrible. It is Australia after all. But out of the 22, 17 million are social media users. And we're very much led by mobile. Okay, so that's a real important point. If you're looking at how do we best engage our participants, what should we do as far as, we're going to build a website, think mobile first, always. All the traffic is moving to mobile. And all the actions are moving to mobile. 6 years ago, people go, no one will ever buy a ticket via mobile. No one will ever buy stuff via mobile. Now that's all they do. And this sort of proves it, that the numbers are moving. People are using search engines on mobile, and those numbers are going further to mobile and off desktop and off computers. They're using social networks, they're playing games, they're watching videos, they're looking for information. And it's that looking for information one that's important. If someone's looking up four-wheel drive, if someone's looking up where do I play cricket, if someone's looking up how can I learn to swim, that's really important. Understanding that, hey, we need to be found. We need to have a website that looks good, that's understandable. Because from a digital point of view, all of the networks, Facebook, Google, which is the other dominant player, they want their users to go to great experiences. So if your website, if your collateral, if everything you're pushing out looks like a website from the 1980s, then it won't get traffic. So it's something to be thinking for. You need to be designing and having websites, and they don't have to be overly complex. If it's simple and answers the question, it will do the job. So here's some stats around what platforms are being used in Australia. As I've already said, Facebook is the dominant player, and in this study, it put YouTube in there as well. And it's still the space where people are consuming content from a video point of view. As you can see, the ones in red are the messenger and chat apps. So it's how people are communicating. Right? Facebook made the choice about 18 months ago to split the Facebook app and the chat functionality into two apps. And that's the way a lot of people are communicating. Especially to get across the divide of Android people talking to their Apple friends, right? All these people are Apple, they're like, I just like my little blue bubbles and I use iMessage all the time. I'm like, sorry, Team Android, you need to still talk to other people. And so a lot of those people are going into Messenger or WhatsApp. As you can see there, Instagram is the big grower and the third player in the social media space. And I'll talk about Instagram a little bit later on. So this infograph we've used for a long time to explain that there are different kinds of digital fans and digital citizens. Okay, the easiest thing for a current affair to say is social media users are that top right, the megaphone or the open book. It's just the person that always takes a photo of the sunset, takes a photo of their new sneakers, that takes a photo of their breakfast, their dog, and then says goodnight. Right? That's the easiest one. Like, that's every social media user, isn't it? Right? But it's not. Okay? Because not everyone contributes content as much as those people. Some people are more on this side. They're consuming content, right? But they're not posting as much. Okay, the stats are that 40% of people on Twitter don't tweet, right? Because what they do is they use Twitter as a news source. I'll open up Twitter, what's the latest news, what are the latest athletes saying, has Warney got himself in trouble again, right? But you don't need to tweet to do that, you can just use it as a news source. So the couple of ones that are important from a sports point of view, inner circle, like that's one that the professional sports have used really well, like bringing the fan into the locker room. It's one that athletes can do to sort of bring the fan along them on their journey with a little bit of content, a few snippets of what it's like behind the scenes, what it's like at training, that kind of thing. But then the other thing that we've found is that people don't stay in those buckets. Okay, because you might be cautious, you might be a lurker, or you might be just an info seeker, just using social to get info. Or you might be sitting there just waiting for a deal. I just follow these, waiting for the deal. Then the deal comes and they jump up. Right? So it's understanding that all the different types of content that's going to hit the mark for those different audiences. One of the ones that we like in sport is the news junkie. Right? Everyone's got a friend in their social network, whether it's digital or otherwise, that wants to be the friend that tells you the news that's happening in their part of the world, or that's happening at your club. Oh, did you hear about so-and-so and so-and-so? Oh, did you hear that player X is not playing this week? And they're effectively your own little newsbreaker of your friend group. So understanding that you might have them in your club or your organisation is really important, because you want to make sure that that person gets the content. Right? Because if that person gets the content, they just bring out their megaphone and go, hey, look at me. Right? Then the other piece is sometimes pieces of content can completely change the persona. And so I use myself in this example. I'm a Detroit Pistons fan in the NBA. I'm a Pistons fan because they were my team when I was going through high school. I loved Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Bill Laimbeer, the bad boys, keeping Michael Jordan down. Like, it was awesome. Unfortunately now, the Pistons suck. Right? So I'm not there going, go Pistons. They're terrible. But when they put out content from the 1989 season, with Isaiah Thomas lighting up Michael Jordan, you know what I do? I go back into megaphone mode and share it. So there will be particular content that will hit the mark for certain people, and they will amplify and promote your club. So it's a matter of finding what that is and then making sure they get it. And it could be as simple as, you're running a little aths meet and here's all your winners, and you're taking photos of all the winners, and again, you've gone through all the appropriate releases to allow to be able to post it, so I understand that. But if you put up a Facebook gallery of, here's all the winners, they've done a terrific job, who shares that? All the families of all the winners, right? Because they're all super proud. So it's a matter of going, what's the content that we can share that's going to make people share our content? So for us, data is the key ingredient for your marketing recipe. Okay, I use that photo because I look like a chef in the white shirt. Right, so data's the key. So what I want to do now is sort of dive into the data that Facebook has. Right, so part of this is scary as hell, But part of this, if you've put on a marketer hat, is really exciting because you're getting better information on people you could potentially serve, whether it's with your product or with your sport. So Facebook has a product behind the scenes, and where Facebook makes all its money is with ads, right? But before you get into start building out ads, you need to figure out who you're going to serve ads to. So Facebook has a tool called Facebook Business Manager and Audience Insights. Okay, so this is the Audience Insights that shows you what different types and groups, what they look like and what they actually like. So this here, that's the breakdown of Australians on Facebook. As I said before, 17 million, and it's a good spread of different demographics. If I scroll down further, you would see how many of them are married, how many of them are single, their education levels, what they like, and then you can dive in of, oh, what's the 25 to 34? What TV shows do they like more compared to the 18 to 24? Those kind of things. So it starts giving you a big, broad picture of the data that you can then start making some decisions on. And it might be, what kind of people will be involved with our venue or our club? Is there an opportunity here? So there's an example of Australians on Facebook, 17 million. Queenslanders on Facebook, 3.5 million. And so again, it starts giving you different numbers. Queenslanders who like sports and outdoors, 2.5 million. Okay, so it starts giving you that info and showing you where the interest lies. And if you look here, the 18 to 24 range, the blue bars are going above the grey. So that means they're over-indexing for the overall Facebook. So this is telling me 18 to 24 is a real prime age for sports and rec, but also so is 35 to 44, potentially. And so what you can do is then go in and say, what does Brisbane look like? There's 1.5 million people from Brisbane on Facebook. And then you can say, of those 1.5 million, what do they like? And it starts giving you different segments of websites, businesses, pubs, sports teams, that can start giving you an idea of what your community is liking. And so when we're doing this type of exercise with sports teams, it's a real good identifier potentially to say, oh, maybe that sponsor might want to be a sponsor of our club because our fan base looks a lot like their customers. So we've got to download a free guide that will be available. So there'll be a link later that takes you through understanding Facebook data and some of the opportunities to at least dive in and go, what does it look like? What does it look like for us? There's, from a grassroots point of view, there's a bit of a tussle between managing your community and how much content you need to put out and the content that all of these platforms want. I'm not going to say require, but want. Okay, because if you come away from this saying, oh, well, Sean said we've got to have a Facebook page and we've got to have an Instagram and we should be tweeting. Oh, now we've got to put content on all those platforms. Firstly, I didn't say that, okay? Because we've got to find out what platform works for you and start with that platform. And I think you should be starting with your community. and looking at what content your community is currently sharing. And some of the platforms that are built specifically for community. So Instagram, all your participants, all your players, all your students, a lot of them are using Instagram. A lot of them are also sharing their participation on Instagram, whether it's before the game, after the game, potentially even during the game. Someone might take a photo of them. They might not be posting it at the game while they're playing. Some might. Right, so there's going to be a lot of content shared on Instagram. I'm glad you brought up Facebook groups earlier. To answer the question that came back before around, I guess, the threat of Facebook groups, I would say take it on head on. I think Facebook groups is a really good way to engage a community and then potentially bring people back to whatever your core offer is. But we are seeing a lot of community groups, footy clubs, netball clubs, cricket clubs, effectively using Facebook groups almost, and in some cases, instead of a Facebook page. There has been a course correction by Facebook in the last 6 months since they got into a little bit of trouble to over-index and say we want Facebook to be about community. We want to make sure that you're connecting with your friends and getting results out of it from that, and less from publishers. So if you've got a Facebook page and you're like, hang on, no one's seeing my posts anymore, what's happening? That's what's happening. And that's what we're seeing at pro sport level. You know, I was at the Broncos yesterday, the Brisbane Lions yesterday. Traffic is dropping from pages. So I think there is an opportunity to say, hey, what happens if we get everybody that is interacting on Facebook into a Facebook group? There's a real opportunity. The other platform that I like a lot, and I think it's underutilized in what is a growing sector of sport, of this semi-organized, less formal sport, which is Meetup. So meetup.com, as the name suggests, is for meetups. And if you go to meetup.com, it's very good in saying, here's your area, here are meetups happening. Now, some of them are networking breakfasts to meet new people for your business. Some of them are, you know, like-minded people who want to learn things. But there's a lot of sport-related meetups there, whether it's, oh, let's go do a run around the tan every Wednesday, or here's a jogging group, or here's a riding group. So if you're in that sort of space, I would suggest at least looking at it. It might be a way to, one, recruit participants potentially, or just start interacting with that audience. Because what I've found in playing around with Meetup and setting up a few networking event type meetups is that people go to Meetup and go, oh, I'm new to the city. What's around? What can I do? And so if you've got a regular class or a regular group catch up, Meetup is super effective for that. And then the other one there is the little check-in logo. And it's sort of been up and down on how it gets used. So for a while there was a product called Foursquare where people would check in to venues, tell people where they were. It's now split off to a product called Swarm, which doesn't have a lot of check-ins, but Facebook has check-ins. Hey, I'm at the Sleeman Sports Complex today. That's where you're telling people. So again, there's a whole bunch of geolocation data that potentially could be around your venues. Right, so it's funny, it's the first time I've been speaking at a venue that's been a previous client. So I work with the guys at Stadiums Queensland, and one of the first things we did was just make sure all of the pins and the geolocations were tied to the appropriate pages. Because there's nothing worse than saying, here's our page for the venue, and then you go and find that Facebook has, or people are checking into a different venue, and so they're not getting your message. So again, it's a little bit of investigate, whether you've got a basketball centre, a swimming pool, a local club. Go find out where, if anywhere, people are checking in. And if you are finding they are checking into this weird venue that's really your venue, you can actually merge those properties into your own one. And that was a really effective strategy for the guys at Stadiums Queensland to say, oh wow, there's 4 different versions of the Sleeman Sports Complex. If we put them all under one and tell Facebook this is the one, when people come here, that's where they check in. So again, it's not a matter of, hey, telling everybody, hey, you must check in at our venue. It's just a little bit of cleanup of your backyard in a digital sense that allows more people to understand what you're doing on those platforms. So as I said, Instagram has been the biggest growing platform in Australia for the last, 2 years. And it is currently still in a growth phase. So just a quick, and I can see enough people. Show of hands, who's on Instagram? Right? So I'm seeing a fair few hands. And who's, if you work for or run an organisation, a venue, a team, who's got their organisation on Instagram as well? Okay. So even from that small poll, more people are doing it personally and want to connect personally than they do with the brand. And so your Instagram strategy, again, I'm not here saying, hey, you've got to have an Instagram account for your venue or your club. Your Instagram strategy just might be, make sure your participants and players and fans are participating on the platform. Now, Instagram continues to grow. As we see there, that graph has continued way off the screen. And where it's different to Facebook, it's different to Facebook where people follow their 6 passions on Instagram. Okay, they follow travel, food, inspiration, or maybe Fitspo. I don't know if that's even a word, but it is on Instagram, right? Or photography, or wine, or sports, or tech. The good thing about sports and your club or your team, normally your team is part of one of those 6 passions, right? So you just got to make sure if people love 4-wheel driving, or they love canoeing, or they love swimming, figure out a way to get into their world. Because Instagram's different to Facebook. On Facebook, you're friends with your friends, your family, and you stalk the people you went to high school with, right? That's what Facebook's for. Whereas Instagram is, I don't really want to think too much. I don't really want to read articles. I want to see pretty stuff. And I want to be inspired a little bit. So it's a bit of understanding of how it can work. One of the most successful Instagram campaigns and activations is with the Australian Open. So this one here is they're collecting all the Instagram photos from the crowd and making this mural. Now, again, you can't do that at grassroots level, but do you know how they get all those photos? Around the precinct, which practically almost envelops Melbourne now, right? It goes from the Flinders Street all the way down to the MCG. They put these stickers on the ground that says, take an AO selfie. And they've got little footprints on the stickers. So you know what people do? Put their feet on the stickers, take a photo, and share it with AO selfie hashtag. And it's the simplest activation that you can do. It's the same as you would have seen the cardboard cutouts of Instagram squares. If someone takes a photo of that cardboard cutout, they have to share it on Instagram. It's already got all the hashtags on it. It's got your account on it. And so from an Instagram point of view, just doing that alone gives your fans, participants, permission to post. Right? It's saying, hey guys, we want you to use this post. We want you to post this way. using this hashtag so people know about what we're doing. And they become your content producers. And it's super effective. Now, it then also opens up the ability for you to potentially reuse that content with permission, of course. Right? So if fans are sharing great content around your events, then you can simply say, hey, do you mind if we share that on our channels? It might be on a different channel altogether. It might be putting it up on Facebook. And again, you've solved the problem of how are we going to put content on all these channels? Well, imagine if your players, administrators, participants are sharing this content and it starts solving that problem for you. Who knows who this is? You just yell it out. I heard. That's Putty. He's a Seinfeld character, and he's the epitome. He's the epitome of the 90s sports fan.
We're the Devils! The Devils!
Because in the 90s, you actually had to paint your face for people to know what team you were a fan of. Now, you don't have to. You can simply send out a tweet, use a hashtag, double tap a photo, check in at a venue. Digital is the face paint. So your job as a sports organisation or a club is to make sure there's enough of this digital face paint for your fans. Because they will identify themselves as a fan. If you go to my Twitter feed or my Instagram feed, you'll know that I'm a Collingwood fan. You've probably unfollowed me now, right? But you know because of what I've done. The beauty of that, and I've been using the Putty example for years, the beauty of that is the NHL playoffs were on recently, and Putty turned up to the playoffs in full paint. And he was there for a quarter before everyone realised.
We're the Devils! We're the Devils! We're the Devils! We can beat anybody! We're the Devils! The Devils!
I love the commitment there. He actually had to paint the D. He did bring in the other characters to do the Devils, but this is pretty much where we've seen digital deliver for sports teams, national organising, state organising bodies, and every team they're always in part of this cycle. So when we started Sports Geek, and if you're just starting out in digital, you'll be in that build audience mode, and you'll be trying to reach as many people. And the thing is, you should always be in that mode. You should always be trying to reach new people, find new audience, find new fans, find new participants. So part of your content, part of your plan is how do we reach as many people? What platform is going to be the best for that? But then the key thing is, so you've reached someone. If you remember the little escalator we had before, if I'm at the bottom end of the escalator, I'm not ready to hand over my credit card. I've just met you, right? It's like meeting someone at a nightclub and buying them a drink and then saying, here's a ring, can we get married? Right? It doesn't work like that. Not even with this technology called Tinder. It doesn't work like that, right? You actually have to engage them first. Have a bit of backwards and forwards. Tell a little bit of your story. Find out a little bit more about them. So you're in that engagement phase. And it might be use our hashtag, share our content. It might be double click our really pretty photo of the racetrack or the pool at sunset. That might be how you start engaging with them. Then, let's get them over that money line. And so that money line might be actual money. It might be getting them to buy a ticket. It might be getting them to buy merchandise. Might be getting them to just one of your events. But the money line could also be data. getting their email or getting their mobile. It's worth money. You know, if you go to a sponsor and say, we've got 5,000 emails on our email list, or we've got 1,000 emails on our email list that like us, that are happy to open up emails from us, that's worth something. You can start talking about sponsorship opportunities because you've got some info. So that conversion process of getting them into your database, that database, whether it be a social database or an actual email database, it's really important. And then you're in the retain space. So that's where the AFL, NRL, Big Bash clubs, the membership managers, they're in the retain place. But even if I looked at, say, the Richmond Football Club right now, the hottest team in the AFL, they've just recently passed 93,000 members, which is phenomenal because they've had amazing reach because of the grand final. They've had tremendous engagement because their content has been awesome on the field and it's gone online and people keep consuming it. They've been able to convert. They've got them into the become a member. All of their social channels are up. But the challenge now is getting all those 93,000 back next year. That's what keeps your membership managers and your participant program managers up at night. So it's how do you retain? And so how can digital help tell that story? Because that's the revenue side of sport. So in everything you're trying to do, it's a matter of knowing your goals and making those goals fit with the resources that you have. So that means from a content point of view, what content can you produce? Can you commit to producing? Again, don't overcommit hey, we're going to do all this content. It's really hard to. What kind of engagement do you want to get? Again, it might be, we're going to make sure that our Instagram account has this hashtag, and this is the hashtag we're going to push, and this is where we want people to do. And then what's that data piece? And your goal might be, we want to have an email database of X by the end of the season. So jumping in, as I said, Facebook has 17 million users in Australia. It accounts for 1 in 3 minutes on Australian mobiles is a Facebook-owned property. There's some of the stats. The numbers have not slowed. 88% of those 17 million are doing it via the mobile. It still drives traffic, but as I said before, it's starting to drop. Started to drop a little bit. Some of the ways that you can build engagement and sort of understand where Facebook's going, and it's always about what's Facebook trying to do and then tailoring the content for that. At the moment, Facebook's still trying to chase down YouTube. It wants to be the destination for video, right? So if you open up your Facebook app, you see a lot of video. That's because that's what Facebook's pushing. So if you've got some video, or if you can take some video, or you can do some live video from your events, Facebook will go, that's great, we'll show more people. You can obviously put in a link and send people back to your website, or you can just share a picture. Again, if you're not creating website content, you're not creating articles, there's no need to force it. Just put the picture up and let people share it. So there's a couple of things that you can do to access the data. It has custom audiences, which Facebook will analyze your data and say, oh, we know those people, here's what they like. And also, Facebook can tell you who's been to your website and potentially say, well, these people have been to your website, but you're not yet engaging with them on Facebook. And again, it's a precursor to ads, but what it is, it's a good data collector to start understanding more about your fans and participants. So you can load a Facebook pixel on your website. So a Facebook pixel is a cookie that adds you to a list inside, and adds you to a Facebook list. Because I can ask now, and I know no hands will go up. When was the last time you logged out of Facebook? Everyone's going, I never log out of Facebook. So that's why Facebook, as more websites put more pixels on their websites, Facebook knows where you go when you're not on Facebook. And so what it enables you to do is to know who's been to our site. And so that's the install and grow. So again, I can't sort of dive into it too much here. There's another download that dives in on how you go about doing it. And this is the Facebook ads component that I'm going to go through a little bit quicker than I have so far. But it is a really effective mechanism to push out your content and get out your message. So whether it's we want to make sure people know about our four-wheel drive association, or we want people to know about our player registration day, Facebook does have a campaign for that. They're all the different types of campaigns. We only use 3 of them in sport. I'm going to go through the 3 that work for us. Because in sport, it's all about the cheeks and the seats, right? It's all about getting people to turn up to your event or to play for your club or your sport. And so you've done this engagement piece of developing your digital cheer squad. Okay, I talked before about making sure you're giving content to your fans to make sure they can share it. You'll start developing your own digital cheer squad. They'll use your hashtags, they'll be sharing content. You want to be able to keep developing that, and this is where campaigns can help amplify that. And from a campaign point of view, you've pretty much got 3 different methods: awareness, consideration, and conversion. Okay, which go back to that graphic that I showed before. So from an awareness point of view, the campaign that we would use is video views. Because you can say, here's my 30-second, a minute video that explains what we do. Player registration this week, come on down this Sunday. Or do you want to learn judo? Here's a quick video on what it's like. You can say, hey, Facebook, I want to show that video to people that are within 20 Ks of my centre that say they're interested in swimming or martial arts or netball or rugby league. And Facebook will go, fine, I will share it. And you say, I'm going to spend $25 and let me know how it goes. And so the advantage is Facebook will show it to people who watch the video, and it will show it to more people like the people that watch the video. So Facebook will do the optimizing for you. Then the next thing is getting consideration, getting your content, again, in the feeds of potentially your participants and people who want to go to your games. And you can use post engagement. So again, if you just put up a picture that says, who's coming this week? It's going to be a great fun run. You can show that to people. And again, you can do the same targeting. You've done some work on the data side to figure things out. And post engagement gets lots of people liking it, but what's even better, gets people commenting on it. Right? How many people have been messaged by a friend by them simply tagging you in a comment and saying, hey, Brendan, should we go to this event? Right? That's what post-engagement delivers you. So if you've got an event or a big day, you can use a post-engagement campaign. Then the last one, if you've got e-commerce, if you've got a ticketing system or a merch system, web conversion is the way to go. And this is the one where we've been using a lot in AFL and NRL space around merchandise and ticket sales. Merchandise in particular. Like I can say, people who follow the Adelaide Crows that can't drive to the shop, that they're 100 Ks away from the shop, but guess what? This thing called the internet, you can buy stuff online. Target them, here's $100 Facebook, but please optimise for people who buy stuff. Right? So the 16-year-old that clicks on it and doesn't buy, but then you have a 28-year-old that clicks on it and buys, Facebook goes, the 28-year-old's buying, I'll show it to more 28-year-olds and less 16-year-olds. And the reports come back, $200 in, $1,000 out. It's like a faulty ATM. Right? Once you get that system, it's like, why would you stop going back to that faulty ATM? So that's what web conversion's for. And so that, ideally, you get to that point. Because then it's not a problem to say, this is the budget. Because people always ask me, how much do I spend? And I said, well, if we put money in and more money comes out, what does it matter how much we spend? Right? You want to get to that point. The other two are brand builders and getting your message out there. As I said, I'll give you a link at the end of this, a free guide on building Facebook campaigns. So after we run a campaign, we also need to look at the data. Right? So one of the outcomes of doing a campaign is getting emails. Right? We know emails are like money. Awesome. We've put a Facebook pixel on our website. So even if they've gone to our website and haven't signed up or haven't bought anything, now they're in a cool list of people who've been to our website. That's valuable. We could potentially give them another offer. All right? If you've ever gone and tried to book a holiday to Bali, then you go back to Facebook and it says, hey, do you want to book a flight to Bali? Right? That's web remarketing. And then the other part of it is your Facebook audience is growing. People are engaging with your page. Ideally, post-campaign data, the biggest one is revenue. How can you start saying, well, we've done this, it's resulted in revenue? It might be the straight shot of selling tickets, merch, but it might be increased player registration, those kind of things. So getting started with data, there's no harm or shame in starting in Excel because you've got to start somewhere. So even if you're paper and pen and asking people to give you your details, that's a good start. But ideally, what you want to get to is emails and starting having a conversation with your fans and participants via email, because then you own it. Okay? Facebook is rented land. You're on someone else's property. Whereas if you at least get their email and mobile, you can start talking to them yourself. So the two there I've listed that are most common are MailChimp and Drip. Right? I've used MailChimp before, and I've since moved to Drip. I find Drip it's a great system because it can start getting you to that point. It's like a light CRM, but it can start getting to that point of automation and start getting a good flow of data and getting a better understanding. So again, if I share you the link later, you'll then end up in my Drip database. You'll be tagged Queensland 2018 because you came to this. You'll be tagged speaking because you've come into my database via a speaking event. And then you'll be put on a little bit of a workflow that says, did you enjoy the keynote? Oh, by the way, I've also got a newsletter. Would you like to sign up for that? And that's the opportunity that's there with Drip. Another one which is being used a lot in sport is SMS. Okay, because email, it's getting a bit overwhelmed. A lot of people will definitely open up an SMS, right? The open rates are. So a company called VidCorp does a lot of SMS engagement and communications, but also via video. So sending out participants, people, hey, here's a video, here's the latest update, that kind of thing. So video is a really good way combining that with SMS. And then the last one, which is super relevant, is a company called Tidy HQ. So it's a startup out of Melbourne. That's Isaac there holding the lawn bowl. He was a footy club president. And again, there was a question before about how do you organise your volunteers and try to make your systems work. And he was a frustrated corporate guy trying to run his footy club, and governance and meeting minutes were getting lost on bits of paper and things like that. And so what Tidy HQ is a software as a service. It's all online that helps you with your governance and of your sports club. So taking your meeting minutes, making sure all of that's catalogued, has a ticketing component. So if you want to run a trivia night, you can run it through Tidy HQ. If you want to start having that email comms, you can use Tidy HQ. And just the study they did recently with AFL Victoria, with the amount of clubs they were working with, they worked it out that they saved every club so much time in volunteers' time that it aggregated to like a saving of 1.2 million across AFL Victoria because it saved volunteers' time. So if you're a club president that's spending 3 hours just trying to keep the club going just in admin, then I highly suggest you check out Tidy HQ. So for me, where to start? Follow the audiences. So look into what Facebook will tell you. It doesn't cost you anything to go and look at ad insights and the audience insights. See what the audiences are there. Start building your list. So whether it's using a tool like Tidy HQ, starting something in Drip or MailChimp, start at least collecting some data so you can have a conversation. Like everyone, no one ever says, you know, oh, I don't really need my list. They always say, I wish I started my list sooner. And then just try to find the balance of how much content you produce and how much community engagement you do. Because it's a resources thing. You don't have, you know, when I started Sports Geek, pro teams had one person running all of the digital, and he was called a webmaster, right? Now there's teams of 10 or 11 people. Now I can't go and tell you, I'll do exactly what the pro teams are doing. That's not valid. But what I can say is you can do it like a little team called Arsenal. Arsenal's social media strategy was to tackle one social media platform per year and get it right and get their systems around it, and then they would move on to another platform. That's a strategy you can go with. You might say, cool, let's figure out how to use Facebook, or let's figure out how to use Instagram, and go from there. So what's your next move? Facebook Business Manager is the behind-the-scenes curtain for Facebook, and a lot of the stuff that I showed you and that's in the guides that I'll send you guys. It's a good starting point. As I said, start your email list and start leveraging your community. And by that, I mean you'll have people in your clubs, around your venues who are playing that are using these platforms. So don't go and assign someone who doesn't use the platforms to say, oh, can you look after our platforms? Find the person that's, find the digital native that's using the platforms and getting experience. I'm hit up all the time from uni students, kids in high school. I want to work in sport. I want to work in sport, and digital looks so awesome. And it is. And the first thing I tell them is, what experience do you have? Have you volunteered somewhere? So there's talent, and there's hungry talent out there that want to get experience. And if someone, if a club comes to me and says, oh, I need a digital executive of some sort, even if they're a starter, I'll point to people who have at least done it with someone else at whatever level, because there's nothing worse than saying, cool, here's the account to one of the biggest clubs in the land, go for it, without you knowing that they can actually handle the task at hand. So that's the link. That's the link you can take the photo of and download later. And now I'm at the spot where I'm going to turn my phone off airplane and see if anyone's tweeted me. I'm going to be terribly disappointed when it comes up with donuts. That's okay. But if you've got a question, and this is where we give the mic guys time to run down the stairs. If you've got a question, please let me know. The slide after this will have my contact details, but you can pretty much put my name in the internet and you'll find me. If you're overwhelmed with information and you don't have a question, the best question at this time is, my club has this problem, what should I do? I'm here to answer that one. So, can we see any questions?
Thanks very much, Sean. What we might do is, I think because we've kind of gone slightly over time and we're starting to chew into lunch a fraction.
Oh, well, can't get into lunch. So, I'll finish it. So if you haven't got the link, other resources are, going to fast forward. That's my podcast, creatively titled Sports Geek, where I've interviewed a whole bunch of sports execs. That's my email newsletter that shares the latest in digital. But I'll be around at lunch if you want to chat with me, come up and say hello.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I was going to say, if anyone has a question for you, make sure they tweet you, Instagram you, Facebook you, and overload your emails for you.
Exactly.